All right, we are live. What is up, Bryce? How you doing?
Man, doing good, doing good, man. How about yourself?
Awesome.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Is sometimes a little tricky setting up the show, but we're here. We're doing it. We're on
Yeah,
what episode is this?
so
4 or 5?
this is four.
4.
I feel
All
like this is
right.
four. Yeah, or is it
I
three?
think you're right.
Okay,
No, it's definitely
okay, yeah.
cool.
So,
So we
man,
got today we're going to talk about modular hip hop. You ready for this?
I'm ready for it, man. I'm all about this. This is what I live for.
Yeah, yeah, man. I'm
So
so happy that you do
before,
because me getting into it, I've needed the help.
and you're doing great, man. You're doing great. Like the stuff you're doing right now is just incredible, man. For what? How long have you had your modular?
I've
Three
had
weeks.
partial modular for about 3 or 4 weeks, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and the stuff you're doing is just bananas, bananas. Yo, but before we jump into this, I just wanted to ask you, like, your this week, anything new, like as far as life, what happened in the last week with Marsh?
Oh, geez. I mean, stress.
Yeah,
That's work though, but that part of work right now is over, I think. So, although we got a snowstorm coming, but modular wise, there's been a couple new things. Specifically, yesterday, took a little trippy do over to Control and Three Wave in Brooklyn and New Jersey, and that was a fun ride. And I picked up some cool things, squid sample and antidote, and I'm pretty excited. I played with it yesterday a little bit, and I'm happy to. I'm looking forward to getting into it tonight.
dope, 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 dope. Man, so how was that? Control. You didn't really get to go inside of Control, right? Remember you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't go into Control. They don't let people in. But they handed me my Euro crack through the door through a slot, a little dark
Yeah.
hole. Um, and I got my stuff over there, and then I went over to Three Wave, and luckily he was letting you got to have an appointment, but I was in there, and that place is cool. Like I'll probably be posting a video maybe this week
Oh,
with some shots from it, but they got
dope,
some really cool stuff. Like I'm used
man.
to going onto Reverb and like looking at all the cool stuff, and I was there, and a lot of that stuff was just sitting there, all over the place, and they have like used stuff and vintage stuff and new stuff as well. So
Mm.
it was really cool. And the guy's awesome. I was able to chat with him and stuff. So
Oh, the owner, the owner.
yeah, yep,
Oh, wow, wow.
yeah. And he like fixes synths and stuff. He does repairs, but not on Eurorack, but
Oh, that's dope. That's dope.
yeah,
Yeah, dope, man. So yeah, that's cool. That's
yep.
cool.
Yeah, that was a fun little adventure. So but yeah, speaking about the good old modular, man, it's been really cool, getting into this world finally. And today I was hoping we could talk about why hip hop is already modular, and
Hmm.
why, if you don't know about modular synthesis and you're making hip hop, you might want to give it a try. I don't
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, and this is interesting because this perspective that you have on modular being hip hop is really kind of a what do I want to call it? Like a philosophy, right? It's a philosophy on
Yeah.
really music creation. So I've been kind of chomping at the bit to hear what this is all about, man. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's basically whenever I get into something new, I feel like I have like all these epiphanies, and I'm like, oh, but this was like that, and that's like this, and so that's kind of what happened when I was really deciding to get into this. And it actually was kind of spurred on by um by Corey and the ModBap crew. Shout out to all the ModBap people. That's like your boys and everything.
For sure, yeah.
And they're like, when it comes to hip hop and modular, like I feel like they're kind of like the pioneers of it, Voltage Controller, all those guys.
Yeah. Yep.
So shout out to you guys, much props, Flex, all you guys, like you guys rock and great inspiration to me, I know personally, and you too, you've been part of that whole thing. So I really appreciate that. That's just really helpful. And so I wanted to say too, like Corey has, if you go to modbap.com, I think it is, and you sign up for the newsletter, he sends you like this PDF, and it's like kind of how to get into modular and kind of learning from the beginning, like what it is and how to use it. And he's got this, it's like the PDF is called Make Shape Move, which I love that
kind of concept. Yeah.
So as I was kind of reading that and digging into modular for the first time, all these things, like I said, these epiphanies and stuff, and I just started writing down notes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like hip hop. Oh my, it's connected, and like I was into it. So basically the idea that really grounded me into this is like, I'm a hip hop head from the 90s, like, and I love, it roots back to the 80s and even late 70s, but like, I'm 42, so I don't go quite that far back, but I go back to the 80s at least. But I was really into hip hop, started really being into it in the early 90s, and back then, if somebody gets into hip hop now, like, I don't know what it's like. I don't have any judgment. Everybody's grows up in the time they grow up.
Right.
But like, I don't think the culture of hip hop is really emphasized these days. And the culture of hip hop is hip hop, that's the thing that's so cool about hip hop compared to other musics. And I love all kinds of other musics, but not many other music, they usually have like a culture around it, but like hip hop culture is like, we got a specific kind of dance, we got a specific kind of way we do the words on our songs, we got art, we have like a whole world, turntablism, breakdance, beatboxing, MC, graffiti, like all that stuff. And I don't know, when I was thinking about modular, I'm like, all this stuff relates, like like, because if you think about it, like it's like people who are like in the city, and they have what they have around them. They might not have access to playing a lot of instruments or anything, or bands. I mean, they might not, but they might not have like crazy equipment, but they got, they probably have a turntable because they like to listen to music, so they're like, maybe you don't have to only listen to music on this. Maybe you can make music with this. Like, I mean, what's more modular than turntablism? Like, you're scratching, you're bringing things back, you're rewinding it, you're like, slowing it down.
So let me ask you a question real quick. So when you say what's more modular than like a turntable, when you use the word modular, how exactly are you expressing that word? What does modular mean to you? I guess we should start there. So because when you say hip hop is modular, what is modular?
Okay, so when I say that, a lot of this is more like in concept and stuff. Obviously, hip hop is not modules,
Right. Oh, yeah.
But the idea is kind of like the make shape move, like that kind of thing, like and the kind of taking something from that it's intended for one thing, but you're actually using it to do something totally different.
Gotcha.
So with turntablism, it's like you know, I mean, first of all, I mean, hip hop started from block parties, and you know, they would get the biggest speakers they could, the loudest things. They go out into the parks, hook up to like a light socket or whatever, like a street lamp thing, the power from that, and they would just blast through the city like this music. And they
Mhm.
had turntables, and what they would do is they would loop. They would come to a certain part in the song where there's like a break beat or something, and they would just like loop that break beat, and
Yeah,
they did that so that people would dance for longer. Like
right.
that was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
purpose of it. You know, it
Absolutely.
wasn't like
Yeah, and if people don't know the history of hip hop, and man, exactly how you're talking about it, it takes me back to learn. I didn't come from that specific era of hip hop, but yo, when you look back at the history, because that's about probably I want to say about 10 years, or maybe a little bit more before I actually really got into hip hop. 10, 15 years, something like that, right? But when you look into the history and how it started, that's exactly how it started. People were playing records, and it would get to this dope part in the record, and everybody be like, "Woo!" This is the jam right here, and the DJ would loop that part, right? He'd
yeah,
loop that part, and then that part would just keep looping, and then at a certain point, the DJ would start just talking, and that talking morphed into emceeing, like, you know what I mean? So it's like it's crazy when you look back on how hip hop started. It is bananas, and
yeah,
for you to express that here is, I think that's significant, man, because hip hop has a history that is pretty crazy, like the way it started, and
yeah,
you're right. It's like people using things unconventionally, like who would think, okay, let's loop this piece of this record and just vibe on this piece right here. And in a sense, that's what you're talking about with modular, like using things in a way that they weren't necessarily, like, just being not necessarily weren't even, I think it's more about using things the way you want to use them, right?
yeah,
Just doing whatever you feel like you should do. And that's really what modular is. Like, if you want to run an LFO into, you know, uh, oscillator pitch, go ahead. You can
yeah,
do it, right?
yeah, and totally. And that's the thing, is like there's no rules. You know, there's not a lot of rules, I should say. And you know, with modular, like if you want to run, you know, a an oscillator into another oscillator, you can. You know, it's
Sure
not going to
can.
have the same effect as an LFO, but it will have an effect on it. You know,
Yeah,
and like there's
yep,
all these like different things you can mix and match,
so
and
true.
you know, there is kind of a certain signal chain or whatever that is typical of a synthesizer unit, but with modular you can mix it all up.
Right, right. Yeah. There are
And
very few rules. You can't run input into an output.
right,
Like, that's just, that's like going
it won't
backwards in
do
the
anything.
space-time. Yeah. That's like going backwards in the space-time continuum. You just
Yeah, you might blow
right.
up the internet or something.
But yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, and I mean also just the fact, like I said, we got turntables and breakdance, beatbox, MC, graffiti, modules, different parts that bring together a whole. You know, it's not just
Yeah,
one thing. A lot of people think hip hop and they're like, it's rappers, that's it, like, but that's
yeah.
not what it is.
Right, right.
You
For
know,
sure.
but all those things, like graffiti, like think about graffiti, it's like it's not typing words on a paper, it's taking a word and twisting it and turning it and changing it and putting colors on it and putting outlines on it and adding other things to it, taking certain things away
Right.
until you have this piece of art. It's just
Yeah,
a word, you know.
man. Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. I love that.
Like,
Yeah, and I feel like you said, like these days, today, with the music, at least as far as I can see, like hip hop's not really the culture, and the roots aren't, it isn't very well represented with today's music. Like, you know, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole nother subject, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's I'm trying not to go down that road because
Yeah.
I could sound like an old fuddy
Yeah. Like,
duddy and
get
be
off my
like,
grass, right?
"Yeah,
Like, get off
get
my.
off my lawn, you
Yeah.
rap people."
Right.
But yeah, I mean, all the elements are like that though. Like breakdance is like, you're contorting your body, you're on the floor half the time, like you're doing things, and not only is that, it's not just let's go to the party and dance. It's we're about to battle, and
Mm,
it's almost like a sport too. Like it's like
mm.
they changed what dance is,
Yeah, for sure.
um beatboxing, like you're making percussion with your mouth, like vocal drums, like
Yeah.
everything. Even rapping is like before hip hop, there was no music that like was predominantly people talking, it's
Yeah.
always singing, like
And you know what? I just real quick, like I remember I was a huge beatboxer early on.
really.
It felt, yeah, it just I remember being like younger, and like the thing out here was let's go to the mall and hang out, right? So we would go to the mall, and man, we'd get into these ciphers where there was like, a decent little crowd, 15 people, maybe,
Yeah.
at the most, right? And we'd all be around, but I'd be the one beatboxing and everybody would be rhyming. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's dope.
oh snap, I'm keeping this thing going right now. This is all me, And my point is like with the culture like that, there's so many points of entry. Like you
Mhm.
mentioned, art, people that just like to sit and be kind of what do you call it when you're not really social? What is that called again? I'm drawing a blank.
Antisocial.
Yes. Oh, no. Uh,
Like like an introvert.
like kind of, I don't know. Anyway, so when you're not really the type of person that's social, you just like to sit at home and draw, or you're like, just do your thing. Like there's an avenue into hip hop through art. I remember several of my friends, like they would just have these huge sketchbooks full of just pages and pages and pages of different murals that they would do, and they were just the type of people that would just sit and just draw, and you got rhyming and so anyway, it's just interesting to see all the different areas I think this goes back to your whole modular topic. There's so many different areas of entry into hip hop.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And I agree. Like you don't have to be a musician to be hip hop. Like you,
Right.
you could do all kinds of different things,
Yeah.
to participate, So totally. I same, like and so not only is the culture like that, already, but like it's also like this kind of coming from nothing, sort of,
Mhm.
and making something of yourself. Like that's a big theme in hip hop. It's like, what's the I'm thinking of
Started
like
from the bottom. Now we're
Biggie Smalls, like, something that's the life I live because I went from negative to positive, and it's all like that kind of stuff. And like, but
right.
that theme is throughout all of hip hop from the beginning.
It
And it's
is.
like, what do we use to start to use when you're working on modular? What do you use to start the whole process? You use the most basic possible sound elements you could possibly use, wave
Mhm.
shapes, and then you change them and morph them into, they don't sound the same when you're done with them. Like
Right, right, right. Yeah,
make them into
that's true.
something beautiful. Like
Right, right. Yeah, that's an interesting. That's it's very true. Very true. Yeah.
so, and I love that aspect about hip hop too. Like, I mean, it's inspirational because I didn't come from like the ghetto or anything. I was a suburban white kid. Like I didn't have it amazing. I didn't have it bad. But like that I think anybody still can relate to that, no matter where you come from. Like, you take what you have around you and you do something with it. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know. Like, to me, that's a big deal.
yeah. That's huge. That's huge. That's definitely modular for sure. You start out at the bottom, and then at some point you got this amazing patch going, and you're like, man, I can't believe this came from that. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. I mean, maybe it's a stretch, but to me, when I was thinking of this stuff, like, it was just like, it's all the planets are aligning, like, but yeah, no, I don't know. I think it's pretty neat. Also, like, there is kind of like a lot of uh there's history with synthesis that hip hop is rooted in. The music of hip hop is rooted in a few different ways. It's interesting. I mean, even like we base a lot of our music on samples generally, or the boom bap era. We did originally. Sometimes it was bands and stuff. Sometimes it was just playing songs on the turntable and rapping over them. um but sampling came in at some point, and drum machines also. And samplers and drum machines are products of the synth world. That's where it came from. Synthesizers, and the first synthesizers were modular synths. Like, they just were.
yeah,
They went away and then they came back, but
right.
that's what samplers come from. Like, all those units, Roland and stuff, they were like pioneers in this stuff. And so were a lot of, obviously, Moog, and all, Hammond organ and stuff, things like that. Um but that's where samplers came from. And we kind of, well, I shouldn't say I wasn't one of the ones who pioneered this hip hop stuff, but like, hip hoppers, they took samplers and they used them. They made it their own. Where sampling is now synonymous with hip hop, but like, before that, it was just some kind of experimental thing. Like, the fact that I even have this new squid sample, and like, the fact that Morphogene exists, and if you don't know, these are modules in Eurorack modular synthesis that are very popular and have to do with sampling. Now, they go like kind of beyond the realms of what we tend to do in hip hop, but the fact that those wouldn't probably maybe not even exist, because not many people did much with samples until hip hop came along. Like, there was some people doing some things here and there, but it was
Yeah, hip hop.
popular in any other
Yeah,
way.
yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
hip hop definitely took it to a whole nother level as far as sampling. Like, it created a way to make music for people that couldn't, it was definitely hip hop associated for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think so. Um, and so, yeah, so sampling, I think, is interesting. And it's also, again, taking something, um, that's already pre-made, and using it for a different purpose. And changing it,
Mhm.
synthesizing it. You're basically synthesizing it. You're putting it through envelopes. You're putting it through filters. You're doing different things to it. Um, it's pretty interesting. So we got, since I did just recently mention it, I'll throw this up there, and then we'll get back to what we were talking about. But Sean Barger, how you doing?
Sean, what up?
Thanks for hanging out with us. It says, how you liking Squid Sample? I've only spent.
He spelled it right. He spelled it
I
right.
know. Sample. I just say sample though, because
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
ALM, but yeah, no, yeah.
It's funny if you watch the Div Kid video. He's like sample. He just keeps repeating it like that. But yeah, I've only played with it for I don't know, 5 hours or something. But that was last night because I just got it yesterday, and so far it's like everything in modular, it's a little bit of a challenge. It's actually a very easy and I think if you have like more experience and even have more gear to use with it, like I think that you would have an easier time like with it. But for me, it's simple. Like the concept is simple, but some of the things I was trying to do weren't as straightforward as I expected them to be. But I still made some cool stuff. I mean, you could see my I think my last Instagram post is, a beat I kind of made. And it's kind of interesting. I only used four of the 8 steps, which sometimes you would think you're even limited with just 8, but I only used
Or
four
the 8
steps
steps from Zero
for the,
Control.
yeah, for the sequencing. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I made something kind of cool. Like I kind of want to turn that into an
Oh yeah.
actual beat. Like,
Yeah. That joint is really dope, man. I was kind of
yeah,
blown away at how quickly you came up with something. I know when you get into Eurorack and sampling and just like it's not as straightforward as people think. Like you just think, oh man, I got this modular synth. It's gonna sound trippy. It's gonna sound amazing. I get to do my own thing, but there's a huge learning curve, and there's you actually have to learn this stuff. It's like learning your ABCs, or you actually have to learn this stuff in order to use it. You can't
yeah,
just, you know what I'm saying? So, but my whole point here is that it's dope to see how fast you're getting going. It's dope to see your journey and how fast you're getting started on this, man. Because I know for me, it took a minute. It took a minute. It took some time to learn all these concepts and routing and LFOs and step sequencing, all that, man. There's
yeah,
a learning curve there, but it's fun at the same time, because while you're learning, you're getting results. You're producing things, and it's like that's the exciting part. But again, it's dope to see you on this journey, because you're already making heat, man. Like that Squid sample beat is insane, man. It's really dope.
Well, I really appreciate that. I thought it was pretty funky myself, but but I wasn't surprised though. Like it took a long time to get to that point though. Even last
Okay,
night,
yeah.
like, but yeah, it's fun. It's challenging. Oh, there was something you said there though too that I wanted to jump on. I'm trying to think of what it was, um but yeah, it's really fun. And this has been like when I wanted to get into modular initially, my biggest thing, and I've wanted to do this for a long time actually. I wanted to find a way to do the things you can do with synthesizers with samples. Like I've been wanting to mangle samples in new ways forever. And finally, now I have the ability to do that, to a certain degree, which I'm really excited about. I can't wait to get into it again today.
Yeah.
Um, so it's nothing but challenge, but fun. Oh, I was gonna say, because you were saying like, you have to learn this stuff. There's a learning curve, and not only that, but like your head has to be in it while you're doing it.
Good
I mean,
point.
I think obviously as you get better and you've done it for a long time, things become second nature, just like everything. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like if you're like, you still kind of have to like I feel like you're going to still have to have your head into it if you're continuing to want to explore new things, because I think people probably they patch things up the same way. Eventually they're going to get bored of it, and
Mm.
they want to try a whole different way of approaching it and stuff. And that's
Yeah.
probably why these modules sell too, because they're like, oh, this new thing could help me do another different thing, So, but I've noticed as I'm doing it, there's times where I'm like too tired and like my head's not in it and I'm not coming up with good results and it's frustrating. I just need to be like, tomorrow's another day, and when I come to it fresh and I can have my head in it and I'm like thinking about exactly what I'm doing, I get better results.
Mm. And that can relate, that relates to hip hop as well. It's like anything you do, sometimes you need to take a break, like, and just back off and revisit it another day and get that fresh energy, right?
Yeah, totally. for sure. So yeah, it's been oh, did I put it back on? Whoops. It's been fun. I also wanted to talk about like like I said, there's roots, like I said, just with the gear, and also the drum machines, like a lot of the drums like you heard in old school hip hop stuff is these drum machines, and you can tell they're like, there's a certain sound to it. But not only that, but the actual music that kind of roots kind of that come before hip hop, funk is huge. Like if there wasn't funk, there might not be hip hop. Like the things that changed in funk were how we kind of went forward in our own way, but like the fact of even putting the main like emphasis on the one with the drums and stuff, that's kind of a big deal. That was new at that time. And that's kind of how now we have like, we got the boom and the bap, we kind of added the bap,
Right.
but they had that too. But like also those heavy bass lines and jazz, even reggae, like that stuff has synthesizers in it. Not reggae doesn't usually or didn't usually have synthesizers, but that it's still reggae is interesting because they did like I don't really know a lot about it, but they had like that's where like the dub stuff comes from, like the dub plate stuff. And they did all kinds of experimenting with like effects
Reverb,
and stuff,
reverb,
tape things and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is totally right up the modular alley,
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that you mentioned that. Yep.
So there's that, and then like I said, like jazz, fusion, funk, things like that. Like they totally used like synthesizers and stuff like that in there, and they were probably using some modular stuff too. Some of those older stuff. I'm pretty sure they were. So there's a lot of roots there in the music as well. So and again, I feel like I went a little bit too deep sometimes with my thoughts on this stuff, but this is probably a stretch, but like again, changing things, taking something and like rearranging it, and then it becomes something new and fresh. Like if there's anything like any music or culture that has affected like literally the world, hip hop is it. I mean, rock and roll did it, other music's done it, but hip hop is in everything. You don't even notice it anymore, like half the time. Like there's things like my aunt or my grandmother might say that they don't realize it's directly influenced by hip hop. Like
no joke, huh? Yeah. I'm thinking of something. Yeah.
It's just crazy. Like like I don't know, like there's just so many things.
Yeah, so lots of
infiltrated.
Absolutely. Man, what's that word? There's a word that actually made it into the dictionary, like I think a couple years back. Bling. Like bling. There's an example right there. So bling, like that's absolutely 100% a hip hop thing. And now I'm sure you wouldn't be hard pressed to find like a rich white lady saying that at some point, I'm sure,
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff. I mean, even in the music, like a lot of music has changed because it's gotten influenced by hip hop and stuff. Techno is kind of actually within the modular, really like kind of bread and butter. Techno and things like that, electronic music in general, has definitely been influenced by hip hop. Like there's things like dubstep, and there's things like that. That's actually almost more directly influenced by reggae and stuff. But also like there's been a lot of other things within that electronic dance music type of thing where you're getting those kind of influences from hip hop. I mean, everything influences each other, but
for sure.
I mean, you see it.
There's a huge influence on modern culture from hip hop. Absolutely. No question about that. Sean says right here, all music genres are jacking elements of hip hop now. And that's so true. Like country, especially, like I think you can't get any more polar opposite than country and hip hop. Well, maybe classical. maybe that would be even more opposite hip hop. But country has a huge hip hop influence now, just with the hooks, and the way they do things.
Sometimes they even use like hip hop slang and stuff.
Yeah.
I think some of their songs.
Yeah. So Sean brings up a good point there. Yeah, it's totally true. Yep.
Totally. So with all that being said, I feel like, like I said, I definitely feel like, hip hop is modular, there's things, and again, maybe I'm stretching a little bit, but like, the make shape move, like it's like make something out of nothing, shape it to what you want it to be, and let's make people move with it. Like keep it moving. Like it's just like it's there, man. But so with all that being said, like one thing I think is interesting is hip hop. You don't really see many hip hoppers doing much in the synth world or the modular world. There has been some, I think about LP, like he was one of the first people I ever heard actually using synth stuff. He, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's like the guy who's
from that group, right? What's that group? That duo, right?
the Run Your Jewels.
Yeah.
Yep. There's that. That's his like newer thing. But originally he was the guy behind Company Flow. They had what is it? The Fun Crusher. So I forget the name of that album, but they had like one album, and it's like an underground classic, and you can't even like find it very easily. So there was that, and then he started the label Def Jux, and he just did some really interesting things with synthesis that no hip hoppers were doing. And I don't know, I always loved that he was experimenting with that and making some cool sounds. Dr. Dre is, he's I think I don't know who first did that like whiny, like, synth wave, that you hear in that West Coast music. I wouldn't be surprised if it was him though, because he has roots in like funk music and stuff. And obviously he's bringing in the funkadelic type of stuff and all that stuff. That those sounds come from funk songs, a lot of them,
Right.
But he was one of the few people I heard using some synth stuff. And then later, and this is maybe not the best example because personally I'm not like a fan, but like Swizz Beats, that to me, that was like when stuff started going the wrong way with hip hop, in my opinion. But whatever, everybody's got their own things. But I'm from the boom bap era. I'm still stuck in the 90s. So, but he was using all synthesizer stuff.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, totally. But other than that, like, you don't really hear it a ton. I mean, we are using samplers and we are using synth type of equipment, drum machines and things like that. But there's mod bap now, which is really cool. Like what your boys did with that and are doing with that, like that's like, it's like cool. There actually is a little bit of a community there, What do you think? Do you think that hip hop producers should be more interested in modular, or would they benefit from getting into that, do you think, generally?
I think to get into modular, you have to have a desire to come up with something really unique that's almost like experimental. Now you can take that experimental sound and put it into a structured context of pitches and scales and stuff like that. So you can take that craziness and move it into something structured. But I think to get into modular, you have to have a mindset that, man, I want something that's completely my own, something that's completely different than anything anyone else is doing. How you use that is completely up to you. And I think that I really think any producer would benefit from getting into modular, just based on that alone. But there is a lot to think about when you look at modular synthesis. It's real easy to sit down and play a keyboard and say, this is what I'm making, blah, 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 do my thing on the keyboard. It's real easy to do that. But when you look at a modular synth and all these wires and all these blinking lights, that right there is like, whoa, man, do I even want to go down that road? Like, do I even want to, spend the time to do that? The benefit of doing it, though, is having something that's completely your own, 100%, and then being able to take that and use it in any way that you want to at that point. You might be a really musical person. So, for example, I know when you started getting into modular, you're like, man, there's a lot of these particular things going on, like bloops and bleeps. There's a lot of bloops and bleeps out there. There's a lot of crazy drone stuff. There's a lot of weird stuff out there when you start getting into modular. But as you dial it in, you start hearing stuff. You're like, man, I could use that right there. I could use that. What he's doing right there. I see something special there. And that's what kind of takes you down that road. You're like, man, you know what? I wouldn't use it like this dude's using it, but if I can make these sounds, I could take this and do this other thing with it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the benefit of modular. Like, I think a lot of producers don't, I don't want to say they don't realize, but I think they would definitely benefit from, jumping in and giving it a shot. There is a learning curve. It looks crazy from the outside, all the blinking lights, all the wires. It looks weird, but there's so much freedom in modular,
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, and that's the thing is, if you're a boom bap 90s type, then you're into samples most likely. And unfortunately, samples are like shooting yourself in the head, like, because if you want to like actually make like a living, well, if you're kind of on the underground side, like, you're probably never going to have an issue. But if anything gets popular, you're going to be like dealing with lawyers, and stuff like that. And it's going to be, or you have to just try to clear them beforehand, and it costs a lot of money to clear samples and things like that. Like, so there's definitely a benefit, because to me, that's what I feel like I'm doing here. I feel like I'm creating my own samples, because when I make a beat, like now I'm learning some new ways to make a beat with modular, but a lot of times the way I do it is I just make a bunch of sounds, then I go and chop that up like I would normally make a beat.
Yeah. You know what? Real quick, Sean says getting into modular is scary. And I definitely agree. Like, I remember getting it. I remember like, whoa, man, this is crazy. It's almost like jumping off of like like that extra high diving board. You're like, man, do I really want to do this? Like, there's excitement and there's fear at the same time. You're like, oh man. So yeah, so definitely agree with that, man. For sure.
Yeah. Well,
and how do you feel? Was there that fear? Was there that fear, or how was it for you? Because I know for me, because you're shelling out all this money and you're like, oh snap, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to fry my first module when I try to connect it to the case? Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, like if you go and buy a Casio, you're not worried about like frying your machine. You just plug it into the wall and play. Like, so yeah, I mean, totally. There's, it's like, but it's so exciting. Like the possibilities, like, are endless and limitless. Like, it's like, I think of like a lot of, like, we had a discussion recently about like, quitting your job and trying to do what you love type of thing. And it's like, there's security in a day job, but how much security really is there in a day job? And how much how much potential do you have to actually make a lot of money if you have a boss who's only going to give you so much at the end of the day? But if you were doing your own thing and being an entrepreneur, there's no ceiling. The ceiling is how hard are you going to work, basically, and
Yeah.
luck as well. There's a lot of things, a lot of factors, but so it's like, yes, there's maybe some more security, but also another thing with security is like, how many customers do you have when you're working a day job? A lot of times you have you got your boss, but like if you work independently, say it's an audience, or like you have a bunch of different side jobs, if one of them decides to fire you, you got 90 more, or whatever. So the point I'm trying to say with that is like, the possibilities are, and you're not limited, with modular. And
Sure.
again, limitation is a whole nother thing. It's like, I personally, I artificially limit myself on purpose, because I know that with too much unlimited freedom, I don't create, I get paralyzed. There's too many options, so there's kind of a give and take when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, getting into modular is a scary thing. It can be intimidating, and I would say if it's not something that excites you, like don't try to get into modular. No way. Like, it's too expensive. It's hard to learn. It's not super hard to learn if you're excited about it and into it, but like if it's something like it's like, well, my friends are doing it, but I don't really know. Like, screw it. Like, but like if you're the type of person who's like interested in exploring and seeing how far you can go with something, like, dive in my opinion, save some money and dive in. What made you like excited and interested to get into it originally? Because I don't know, it's a weird thing for somebody to want to do. Like, I don't know anybody besides you and like the people I've come to know, but there's nobody in my life who even knows what a modular synth is. Like,
we may have touched on this before, but I just want to give shout out to Voltage Controller. Like, he's the cat that I first saw. So initially my thoughts were, I want to get away from sampling. And I started using synths. I started using regular, just traditional synthesizers. And then from there, yeah. When you're learning about oscillators and routing and, oh man, I can, modulate this with an LFO. That's so dope, And then came the discovery of modular synthesis, where you mean I can really like do anything I want to do. So that's what kind of led to that. It was just the desire to be uniquely myself through sound, is really what I would kind of like sum it up as.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, that makes sense. And I feel like maybe your reasons are different than mine, because I feel like what I hear you talk about a lot of times is you want to be free to express, to be expressive. Like, you say that even with your guitar, like you're trying to learn music theory more and more because you want to be able to be free to just, whenever you have something inside that you want to express, you just want to be able to express it and have the knowledge and ability,
And it's funny, guitar, and I think modular synthesis is the same. So two real quick points. So with modular synthesis, you can only express yourself as much as you know. Like, if you don't know, you can run an LFO into the pitch and modulate the pitch. You can't express yourself with that. You know what I mean? So the more you know, the more expressive you can get. And that's the same way it is when it comes to the guitar or any instrument, really. Like, the more you know, the more you can express yourself. So when I learn a couple chords on guitar, now I have more of a vocabulary. And that's what it comes down to with modular synthesis as well. The more you know, the more you patch, the more you do these different things, the more things you figure out, the more expressiveness you have to, use those things as tools. And I kind of look at them as samples. It's crazy because like you have this pool of samples, this pool of stuff you can draw from to express yourself, but now it's uniquely your own, rather than it being, you know, something that somebody else made. Your knowledge and the things you know about your modular synth is your sample pool. You know what I mean? You know, different things you can pull from, you know? So, and Sean says real quick, man, let me see if I can show this. Yeah. I feel like you have to be interested in sound design to enjoy modular. That's a really good point. I know you've talked about sound design a lot over this journey that you've been on, and it's so true.
Yeah, I mean that's. I think originally I was interested in modular because I wanted to, and maybe it's because of sound design almost, but like I wanted to see how I could mangle samples, how I could use samples in a unique way that nobody else was doing, basically, which, you know, that's been a lot of what I wanted to do with everything, you know, forever. Like I just always want to do something new and fresh that hasn't been done before or heard before. You know, so that's kind of where I was at. But now I've also got into other kinds of music and, you know, other stuff that's kind of related to the EDM stuff. And I'm like, how do they make that sound? You know, even just watching Star Wars or something, like I love how the sound design that they create and stuff like that. Like, and I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And now I could take samples and mix them with sound waves and do all kinds of crazy stuff, you know. So I am definitely very much into sound design now. Like that's like my favorite thing to do. I'll just sit here and make sounds all night and forget to make a beat. Like so
That's so dope, man. Yeah, because I know you've been talking a lot about sound design, and it's kind of got, you know, that whole topic, you know, being so relevant with what you're doing has kind of trickled in my ear. I'm like, man, you know, sound design, like your approach is really from a sound design aspect, you know, and that's really been something that's highlighted on your journey for me. It's like sound design, and I think it kind of goes back to what Sean said here. You know, it's like you do have to have an interest in sound design to like really embrace modular, because that's what you're doing. You're designing sounds from the ground up, you know?
Well, I think with all music, you're kind of sound designing a lot of times, even if you don't realize it.
Sure.
You know, I mean, even you with your guitar pedals and stuff, like you're not just playing the guitar as is, you know.
Man.
And
you know what you're saying right now is a good philosophy to just have in general. Like modular is very sound designish. I will definitely give him that without a question. Like,
yeah,
I definitely agree with him. But when it comes to like sampling, if you're not thinking that way, you're just like, okay, let me chop up the sample. Let me, you know, lay this down. But if you think about it from more of a sound design perspective, that's a different approach for sure. You know, that's a different mindset. So I agree with you on that. Yo, so real quick, I just wanted to have you kind of wrap this whole thing up in a paragraph and put a bow on it. Like modular is, hip hop is modular. Like wrap that whole concept up for us and kind of give us a concise little package.
Oh goodness. Well, I did have a couple more little points I wanted to bring up, and I can do that though. I'll try to do that. I'll attempt to do that. One, I just wanted to highlight this other benefit, like for people who make hip hop music, especially like from my era, the sample era and stuff like that. Like a lot of us, I don't know. I don't hear people talk about it too much, but like I know it's true. Like a lot of us struggle with certain things, like how do you put like a bass line on a sample? Like I don't know how to play an instrument, you know. You know, I you know, and I've learned some tricks over the years to kind of do that, but I still struggle with that because I don't, you know music like that. I've dug into music theory. I love music theory, but I still have never like traditionally learned an instrument. You know, and that's one thing that's really cool about modular is there's ways to get around that. Even if you want to be melodic, there's a thing called a quantizer, and quantizer is not what you know as when you're using a DAW or using an MPC. That's getting the beats in the right spot, you know.
Right.
Quantizer and modular is
Just getting the notes in the right spot pitch wise.
exactly. Yeah. So you can say, I want to stay within this scale and set your oscillator to that, and you're good. You don't have to worry about the scale being off.
Right.
Like, so there's ways around that, you know. And there's also just ways to play around with tones and pitches and stuff, just and by ear getting it right, you know, without having to like know which keys to press, you know. Right. But that's the same as well with a keyboard anyways. And then one other thing I wanted to bring up too was, you know, you were mentioning, you know, that like you have to learn certain things. The more you learn, the more expressive you can be with modular, and you have to get the vocabulary. And you mentioned vocabulary, and I'm like, that's another thing that it's like hip hop, like especially with emceeing, like you gotta get the vocab, man. Like, and it's like it's so true. Like that's another thing that's really cool is like I think a lot of people like who were rappers and they were probably just, you know, regular whatever, but they probably have expanded their vocabulary because they're like, you gotta have the vocab, man. Like you gotta have that like linguistics and stuff. So yeah, that's just another little thing. And I also totally. And I also wanted to mention too, Kodak says he just got a couple of mods and a sequencer. I'm not sure what you mean by looking mods, but that's probably a you know, autocorrect thing. Yeah. But I'm curious what you got, man. Kodak's a friend of ours.
Kodak's a good dude.
And I'm curious. I actually, as I've been learning about all this stuff, so Kodak is a dude who knows like computers, like he's good with computers and stuff, and he's been producing beats for a long time. And he also does scratching and stuff too. And he raps, not to mention he's a dope rapper. You know, so you know, I've been getting into this world, I keep thinking about you, dude. Like, I'm like, I wonder if Kodak would be into this modular stuff. So if you are, man, I gotta hear it.
You gotta find out exactly what Kodak means by this, because if he got he says Nifty bundle. I'm not sure what the Nifty bundle is. I don't even know if that's modular, but it's
familiar.
It does sound familiar.
I've heard of that.
It does sound familiar. If Kodak is on some modular-ish, oh, this is crazy. Like, what up, Kodak? Where you at, son?
I know.
That's dope. That's dope. Bundle, man. That's cool. Yeah. Shout out to Kodak, man.
Up with anything. Oh, I see what it is. Yes. Okay.
Is it modular stuff?
Yeah, he's getting into it. It's Eurorack.
What?
I've seen these. I've seen videos where people use them. There's a thing on the left. I think it's how you play the notes. It looks like a honeycomb type of design, and it's got these little. You press the little honeycombs. It's called Cell 2.
Oh, okay. I'm
a mixer called Chips or something. I'm assuming that's a mixer. Or maybe it's something else.
Oh, yeah. The Nifty case. Yep. I got a homie that has this. So man, he got the bundle. Okay, so Nifty bundle. Shout out to Kodak, man. You're about to, I don't know if you have this stuff yet, but if you don't, you're on Man, we need to add him to the group. Like,
I know. We got to chat a little bit.
we gotta chop it up with Kodak, man.
For
Shout out
sure.
to Kodak, man. Yeah, congrats, man. Congrats for being on the journey.
Yeah, and he'll
Yeah.
probably pick it up quick because, like I said, he's a technical dude.
Okay.
So yeah, you want to wrap it up in a bow? I don't know.
Yeah.
Man.
Wrap this up in a little concise little package for us. So modular hip hop is modular. Give me a paragraph on that real quick. Tell me what that's all about.
Well, like I said, to me, and some of these things even came while talking about this here, but like, the elements, man, like we could call them the modules of hip hop.
Right. Okay. I'm seeing
You
it.
got the MC module.
Okay.
Module. Like I'm about to take dancing and I'm gonna throw a LFO on that junk and then put a VCA in it. Man, that thing is gonna look nasty after I'm done with it.
Yeah. Like, we about to modulate this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Yeah, for sure.
So, I don't know. Like to me, it's the elements. It's taking a base level thing and turning it into something fresh and new and interesting. It's that, I don't know. To me, hip hop is modular, and I think a lot of us hip hoppers would benefit from getting into the modular world.
Dope. I feel it, man. I definitely feel it. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
So if you're out there, guys, you're here for the beats. We're the brothers who talk about the beats. There's more. It's not. It wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe start looking into some modular stuff, especially if you want to freshen things up and start doing some new things. Start creating your own samples. Like I'm surprised. Like when I sit here and play with sounds, like sometimes I come up with stuff and I'm like. I would sample that, and I'm like, I'm making it. I can sample it. Like,
right.
I watch other people's videos and them doing stuff, and I'm like, I should ask them if they'll let me sample that, like, because that is dope.
Yeah. So, and if anybody's watching this and you have any like questions, you got any like, man, hit me up. I'm always down to chat. Like. On IG, so my IG handle's right there at upright.music. So hit me up. I'll chop it up with you. Like if you got any questions about modular or like, how to get into it, where to start. I can definitely point you in the right direction for sure. So just throwing that out there. I'm down to chop it up with people for sure.
And if you have questions for me about modular, I'll just point you over to Bryce. He's got more knowledge than me. But no, I'll be happy to chat with you. Like to me, it's valuable hearing it from somebody who's got experience, and it's valuable hearing it from somebody who's in the trenches trying to learn this stuff too. So
that's where the experience
I can pass on. I'll be happy to.
Yeah, that's where the experience comes from, is being in the trenches, and that's definitely where you're at right now. And you're moving along real fast. I'll tell you that for sure. Absolutely.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. And once again, the links are in the description too for Upright and for myself. So, you can always check that out. Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm excited about this modular journey, and I'm excited to continue seeing other people, who are in the realm of what we've done our whole life as well. Not the modular as much as the hip hop. There's that boom bap heartbeat that's like rocking in our hearts, and we can't stop. Like we have to keep going. And it's
Absolutely.
Like modular could be imagine if a lot of our favorite producers started getting into what if like freaking Dilla had a modular setup? What if Rock was like, I want to try messing with these patches a little bit. Like where would they go with it? Like
I've heard a lot of people say that if Dilla was still here, he'd be into modular. And I don't know if you know who Ski Beats is, but Ski Beats, he's a monster. He's a monster. Check him out on IG, Ski Beats, but he completely embraced modular. He's like I would say he's the he's the biggest hip hop cat that has embraced modular as far as I know. Of course, there's EDM people like Dead Mouse and all that stuff that are really into modular. But as far as hip hop, like the most known hip hop producer that I know of, Ski Beats, is all about that modular life. So yeah, he's one of the ones, like you said, like what if, big name producers or whatever started embracing modular. He's definitely the seeds of that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm definitely gonna be checking him out. And I mean, there's other people too. And again, ModBap crew, like shout out to the ModBap crew. Like go to modbap.com, go to like these, check out the Beat People podcast. Like they're doing it, man. They're doing cool stuff. So and obviously we're doing it as well. So like there's people out,
Yeah, for sure.
So all right, man. Well, I think we did a show. What's up, Kane? I see you there.
I see Kane. What up, Kane?
Yeah.
So I guess that's it, huh? We'll wrap it up. Another Beat Brothers episode in the books.
Totally. Yeah. And we're gonna keep coming out with some. What's that?
I said we're on a roll. Episode 4.
Yeah.
Hopefully next week, guys, we will have a theme song that will bang your ears into our episodes. So it's going to be a collaboration between the Beat Brothers. So myself and Marsh over here. Where's Marsh? He's over there.
Yeah.
So myself and Marsh, we're gonna come up with a pretty dope track to get things cracking off here for each episode. So hopefully that'll be done next week. So
we'll give it a shot. That's a hefty order.
We're gonna try, right?
Actually, that reminds me, I was supposed to try to do some quantization stuff. I got a little distracted by this this little venture I went on this weekend. So
Yep.
But yeah, man. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us in the chat, and everybody watching on the replay. Like, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, let us know, hit us up, we'd be happy to chat. And other than that, we'll talk to you next week.